All right. Seems like Poms are out, officially out of the World Cup. All but out, I guess you could say. Another loss for England. 4 losses, 1 win, same as Bangladesh now. I got my guy Rakimul Haq here with me, as always, for our morning after. To start off, Sadira Samarawickrama, best batter after Quinton and Henrik Klassen at this World Cup, or what?
It's fitting how all of them were wicket keepers.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's been a very impressive resurgence for this young wicketkeeper batter. That's for sure. I
yeah,
mean, he was somewhat out of the scene. They really pushed to bring him back and make him this proper middle order batter that he is right now. And it's
yeah,
been impressive from the Sri Lankan management, the way they have backed some of their players through some very difficult phases.
yeah. Yeah, so you look at someone like Kusal Mendes, you think back maybe a year or so, or even 2 years back, not really scoring runs, some disciplinary issues back in England during a tour with the infamous Danushka Gunathilaka and Niroshan Dikwela, both who are out of the scene now. But yeah, he's had to step on and become a captain middle of the World Cup. Not a bad dig, 2-2 for him.
Not bad at all. I mean, he isn't getting the runs as much as the fans would like, but
Yeah.
not a bad thing at all. And now he has someone like Angelo Mathews to help him out if needed. So that's always a very welcome addition.
Yeah, Big Daddy Mathews back in after what, 3 years? Hasn't bowled for 3 years, sorry. First
He
over,
played
third,
earlier in the summer, I think,
yeah,
against Afghanistan. That was the last
Afghanistan.
time he
Yeah, yeah,
probably played.
yeah, yeah. So hasn't bowled in 3 years. Rocks up. Nice third delivery. Gets Dawid Malan. So that's where we start off with our review on England. Malan Bairstow, good start, and then some runs for Stokes, but England just don't look like a team that they promised to be leading up to the World Cup at all.
They look kind of confused, if I'm being honest. Their middle order looks completely absent,
Yeah,
which is very un-England like. I know I've been going on about how they haven't played enough ODIs, how throughout the entire summer they just focused on Test cricket and a bit of T20 cricket. You have all these tournaments like the 100 going on in the
yeah,
background. And then at the very last minute you realize you haven't played enough ODIs. You have
yeah.
that
What is ODI cricket? Doesn't
series
matter
against New
anymore.
Zealand.
Yeah, yeah. What is
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, what does that? Yeah.
And then those last three matches, like it was really what do you call that? That really that series that they tried to
That
organize
that
against
series,
Ireland.
almost everyone hated it. All those guys who were on that series absolutely hated being there because it was literally 4 days after the final of the World Cup. Uh, just what is that? So yeah, I mean, thoughts on Root, Butler, Livingstone. None of them getting runs, and it's the way that they're getting out. It's not even that they're out of form. They're almost giving their wickets away, I would say, for
They're
batters of that
looking
pedigree.
they're looking a bit intimidated by this bowling, if
Yeah.
I'm being honest.
Lahiri
And
Kumar is
this
getting
is
sent around the park by everyone else, gets man of the match here. Like,
it doesn't really make sense. Even if you go back all the way to the warm-up game against Bangladesh, the way
yeah,
they lost those 5, 6 wickets, it looked like they were genuinely intimidated and trying to hit their way out of every situation,
yeah,
which doesn't really make sense. Like, you don't have to do that. You can do that in certain situations, but you don't expect the defending world champions to be doing that in every possible scenario. They look like anything but at this point.
yeah. I mean, if we've talked about how Bangladesh look like, they haven't competed at all in any of the matches, and England, barring their match against Bangladesh, where they won convincingly, they have not looked to be competing at all. So Sri Lanka, in terms of bowling, Lahiru Kumara 3 for, Angela Mathews 2 for, Mahesh Tikshana and Kasun Rajita. Is this a better bowling lineup than the lineup that they played even last game where they had Dushan Hemanta and stuff? Uh, so two options spin wise, Tikshana and Dhananjaya, although he bowled only one over. They do look like they're missing Hasaranga a little. They're trying to patch those overs with like extra seamers and stuff. But is this a better bowling lineup going forward in the World Cup?
I think they realized unless the pitches are absolute rank turners, which we haven't seen so far, they are probably better off going the other route rather than focusing on the spinners. Because
Yeah,
again, as you said, Hasaranga isn't there. Tiksana isn't a very typical spinner in a sense that
he's
he
bowling
prefers
medium
bowling with
pace
the new ball
sometimes. Yeah,
and just straight
yeah,
up bowls medium pace sometimes.
yeah.
So you can't really go the other route and play as with spinners as your strength, which again, very un-Sri Lanka like. Sri Lanka don't find themselves in these situations too often, but now that they have to go the route of the Pacers. They have to basically trust that Lahiro Kumara can keep up with his current form. So can Rajita. Mathews, that's the thing about Mathews. He always chips in ICC tournaments with ball in hand somehow. I mean, I remember last World Cup, he hadn't bowled for a year and a half. He comes in,
First ball,
gets
right?
the
Yeah,
wicket of Nicholas Puran and wins the game out of nowhere.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's what he can do with ball in hand.
I remember when Matthews first came onto the scene, which was what 2009
2009
T20
T20
World
World
Cup,
Cup.
opening the bowling, and they had like first they started spelling his name with double T, and then they put like a sticker on one T, and then it just put Matthews. And yeah, I mean times have changed since then, but
That's Sri
uh,
Lankan side though.
that was a
You don't
crazy
get
team.
teams like that
You
anymore.
don't get, yeah. And they were ahead of their time at that time. Like if you think about where T20 cricket was at that time, they were. Um, Last bit about England. You think a lot of their collapse and stuff now is due to the downward trend of their momentum since all those losses have started piling up. It's not really, it might not even be a form thing. Guys might be hitting the ball really well in the nets and stuff, but in terms of match momentum and win momentum, they don't really have that. And in a tournament like this, sometimes losses just keep piling up because you're down and out, kind of.
It's possible, but if I'm being honest, if you think about the scenario in which both these teams were before the start of this game, we were talking about yesterday, with it being a must-win game for both sides,
Yeah,
it doesn't really make too much sense that England would be the one who would feel all this pressure rather than Sri Lanka,
right.
if that makes
Yeah,
sense. I mean,
yeah.
Sri Lanka are
They were bottom of
more
the table,
seem
right?
to be, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
seem more to be the team who would face that sort of pressure rather than England at this point. But I think it's more than just the pressure of losing. England have sort of dug themselves into this deep hole, and I think it's got a lot to do with not prioritizing ODIs in the last 4 years.
yeah.
They only realized last minute that okay, no, actually defending the title has
Has
something
something, yeah, yeah. Although
to do.
although
I
Butler's
mean,
been
it's
in the
something.
media about, we're not here to defend nothing, it doesn't matter. And England's always giving a chat here and there. Stuart Broad's been in the media a little last 24 hours talking about what he said to Pat Cummins in the Ashes after they ran out, what's it called? Johnny Bairstow. Moving on, Patum Nisanka. We've talked about it a lot, especially in our morning after episodes. Top order runs making a lot of difference at the World Cup. England, Sri Lanka specifically have had a lot of consistency in top order runs with Mendes getting a few. Nisanka, Kusal Pereira got a 76 the other day. Um, you think even though they were bottom of the table, now that they have two wins, just having top order runs has really allowed them to flourish in these last couple of games?
Absolutely. Sri Lanka, their biggest strength, as you mentioned, they were getting runs. In the first couple of matches that they lost, they got
They scored
300
like what,
plus runs on both.
345? Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
345 in one of them. It happens. Look, once your opponent chases the biggest total in World Cup history, which
yeah,
Pakistan did,
yeah,
you can look at it both ways. You can look at it as no, our bowling attack is struggling. It's
yeah,
really bad right now. But on the other hand, batting side is doing really well for
yeah,
that to be the highest ever total to get
to
chased
get
down.
it.
So you
Yeah,
can take the positives out of that, which I think they are doing. They've taken the positives out of that. They've taken the positives out of how they chased against the Netherlands. It wasn't the smoothest sail as we were talking about. They
yeah.
did push it a little deep,
Too
a little
close.
too
Yeah,
deep, taking it
little too close.
taking it
Yeah.
too close to comfort. But
Yeah.
again, the main point is
Runs.
they got the job done
Yeah.
and they are getting runs at the top order. Everyone's had an innings or two, as you said. So I think they're using that confidence to its full extent, and it's working so far.
The Angelo Mathews flies over for the World Cup, gets 2 wickets, doesn't bowl. I don't think he's minding that at all because they're getting the wins. What do Sri Lanka have to look for now with round five done, 4 games to go? Are you giving them a good chance for the semis here? Or where would they ideally want to finish leading into these last 4 rounds?
It's kind of a mixed bag. Like their opponents are Bangladesh, Afghanistan on one hand, and on the other hand, you have uh India, maybe, and who
I think
else?
what New
New
Zealand,
Zealand?
New Zealand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
India, New Zealand. So
yeah.
it's kind of a mixed approach. Like they can on their day beat any team, basically. We
Yeah.
know that. But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of risky. I wouldn't be too confident. I wouldn't be too nervous either, especially not against Bangladesh or Afghanistan. So
So
you never
those
know.
are two teams that they've played recently at the Asia Cup, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
they've
And
done
beat them
well,
both.
beat,
Mhm.
beat them both. So you think that's some confidence that might translate over to this, even though Shanaka's not captain, he's out injured, but he's with the squad still. Um, but you think it's helping them having him still around the squad, bounce ideas off, almost live from him. And so come Bangladesh and Afghanistan game, even if they fall under the pump a little, they might be able to get back into the game.
Absolutely. And we know that Bangladesh and Afghanistan aren't immune to batting collapses either.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they could both face those scenarios. And I think more importantly, we also have to
no,
just have to keep in mind that uh, what do you say that? I'm sorry. Lost my train of thought there for a second. We also have to keep in mind that uh,
yeah,
these pacers who performed well today, they will be geared up and ready to go against Afghanistan and Bangladesh,
yeah.
particularly Bangladesh, because we've seen Bangladesh struggle against pace and bounce this
And
tournament.
short ball. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that's something that they can target 100% is short ball tactics against Bangladesh because, yeah, I mean, you put third man out and find leg out, you might buy yourself a couple of wickets that way. Yeah, I mean, defending champions almost out. What do they have to look for in the last 4 rounds here? Stokes came back from retirement, looked all right today. You think he's gonna play the next four, or is it more about giving Harry Brook maybe 4 more games at the World Cup, just seeing how they go? The coach did say they're playing for pride at this point now. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, say save face at this point. Just don't end up at the bottom of the table
Bottom of
as
the table.
defending champions because that would be embarrassing.
Yeah,
And as for Stokes, yeah, if there are even minor injury concerns, I wouldn't play him because there's no point anymore. There is no point. There was, in my opinion, no point of bringing him back from retirement. There really
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah.
Like, knowing all the
They
injury
thought
concerns he
that
does have.
Ashes impact could translate into this, or like Red Ball impact could translate into this, but
He even had that game against New Zealand, the where he broke his own record, got the
yeah,
highest ever English score. But again,
yeah,
you can't depend too much on those sort of scenarios here in an ICC tournament when a player is going through so many injuries.
yeah. And
So yeah,
basically, he played what? He didn't play much at the IPL either, right?
no,
He
no,
was
no. I think we
he
put two or
he
three matches, and
two or
that's
three
it.
matches, didn't really bowl much, doesn't bowl as at all anymore nowadays because of his injury. So yeah, I mean, um, sad. I think a lot of people counted England as a favorite leading up to the World Cup. They were in a top four for most people. If you ask for previews ahead of the tournament. So yeah, I mean, tomorrow we'll be back with South Africa versus Pakistan. Definitely a big game for Pakistan, do or die, as much as it was today for England and Sri Lanka. So A lot to look forward to, and South Africa going on hot form. So we will be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us, and keep supporting Bagrat.